She never planned to find anything unusual that afternoon. All she wanted was some quiet time after school, far away from noisy classrooms and endless assignments. Most people saw her as the quiet, nerdy girl who preferred books over people, and they weren't entirely wrong. She liked her peaceful world, her science projects, her forest walks, and the small adventures she created in her mind. But that day, something far bigger waited for her between the trees. The sky was turning golden, the kind of warm color she always loved because it made everything look soft and calm. She walked with her backpack bouncing gently, filled with the usual things she carried everywhere: small tools, notebooks, a flashlight, and a few snacks. She liked being prepared for surprises, though she never imagined the kind of surprise she was about to face. The forest near her home wasn't huge, but it felt magical in its own way. Tall trees, glowing sunbeams, scattered leaves, and the quiet sound of birds settling down for the evening. She would often collect stones, examine insects, or record interesting plants. It was her private world, one she never shared with anyone else. But that evening, something felt different. About 10 minutes into her walk, she heard a strange sound. It wasn't a bird, nor a squirrel, nor any animal she recognized. It sounded like a mix between a growl and a soft cry, as if something was hurting but trying to stay hidden. She stopped walking and looked around carefully. The sound came again, a little louder this time. Her heart jumped. She felt a mix of fear and curiosity. Most people would have walked the other way, but she took a slow step forward. She pushed aside some low branches and listened again. The sound was definitely close. She tightened her grip on her backpack strap and moved toward the noise. The forest suddenly felt quieter, as if it was holding its breath with her. As she stepped over a fallen log, she saw something move behind a cluster of bushes. She froze. At first, she thought it might be a dog, but then she caught a glimpse of something she had never seen in her entire life. A strange creature, curled up tightly, breathing unevenly. Her heart pounded. She slowly leaned forward to see more clearly. The creature shifted its weight, and for the first time, she saw its full shape. It wasn't a dog. It wasn't anything from Earth. Its body was covered in scales that shimmered like metal in the fading light. Its wings were folded in, trembling slightly, and its eyes, large, glowing, and full of pain, briefly met hers before it looked away again. Her breath caught in her throat. It was a dragon, a real one, but not like the ones in old stories. This one had a shape that felt more alien, more delicate, yet powerful. Its tail had tiny glowing patterns. Its wings looked like they were made from thin sheets of crystal. She didn't understand how such a creature could exist, but she wasn't imagining it. It was real, and it was hurt. She took a small step closer. The creature made a weak growling sound, warning her not to come too close. She froze again, raising both hands slowly to show she meant no harm. Even though she was scared, the fear didn't stop her from noticing something important. The creature's front paw was stuck awkwardly under its body, and something silver glinted near it. She crouched down a few feet away and squinted. That's when she saw it clearly. A long, sharp metal nail was embedded deep in the dragon's paw. She felt a sting of sympathy. No wonder the creature was in pain. The nail didn't look like something natural. It looked like something humans might use for fences or building work. Had the dragon stepped on it by accident? Was someone trying to catch it? She didn't know, but the thought made her uneasy. The dragon groaned softly, shifting to ease the pain. It made a noise that sounded almost like a whimper. Her heart softened even more. She couldn't just walk away and pretend she didn't see it. She took another slow step closer. The dragon's eyes snapped open and locked onto her, glowing faintly. She could feel its fear and distrust. It was young, maybe not a baby, but still too small to be fully grown. Its wings weren't wide yet, and its body wasn't thick or large. Maybe it was just a young creature lost in a world it didn't understand. "It's okay," she whispered softly, not sure if it could understand her, but hoping her voice sounded calm. "I won't hurt you. I promise." The dragon lowered its head slightly, watching her movements closely. Every step she took felt like a test. But she didn't rush. She moved as slowly and gently as she could. When she was close enough, she set down her backpack and carefully unzipped it. The dragon let out a wary growl, but didn't back away. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small toolkit. It was just a simple set pliers, small screwdrivers, tweezers things she carried for science projects. But today, it felt like she was holding something far more important. She glanced at the dragon again. Its paw was shaking. The metal nail looked deep, and the area around it was slightly swollen. She took a deep breath to steady her own hands. "I need to help you," she whispered, her voice almost trembling. "This is going to hurt, but I'll be gentle." The dragon didn't respond, but it watched her closely, as if trying to decide whether it trusted her. She slowly moved toward its injured paw. The dragon tensed, growling softly, but didn't strike. She understood why it was scared. Any creature in pain would be. Her fingers gently touched the paw, and the dragon flinched. She paused, giving it a moment. Then she tried again, brushing her fingers lightly against its scales. They were surprisingly warm, not cold like she expected. The dragon's breathing slowed just a little. It was letting her touch it now. She adjusted her grip and carefully placed the tip of the tool around the nail. The dragon growled louder, and for a moment she feared it might panic and lash out. But she kept whispering calm, soothing words. The forest around them seemed quiet, as if it too was waiting. "Just one pull," she said quietly. "Just one." She gripped the nail firmly. The dragon squeezed its eyes shut. She counted silently 1, 2, 3, and pulled. The creature released a loud, echoing roar that shook her bones. It wasn't angry. It was pain bursting out of it like lightning. She couldn't help but shut her eyes and hold her breath through the sound. But then, suddenly, everything went silent. She opened her eyes slowly. The nail was in her hand. The dragon's paw was free. The creature collapsed onto its side, panting heavily. The wound bled lightly for a moment before a soft blue glow began spreading around it. She stared in awe. The glowing light pulsed gently, as if the dragon's body was healing itself from the inside. She had never seen anything like it. In fact, no human had ever seen something like this, at least none she knew of. The dragon looked at her with tired eyes. It didn't growl this time. Instead, it let out a small sound-off whine, half sigh almost like relief. She felt a wave of emotions rush through her. Fear, amazement, sympathy, and something else. A strange sense of connection. She didn't understand why, but she felt responsible for this creature now. She had helped it, and it trusted her enough to let her near. She sat beside it, feeling the soft glow of the wound reflect on her hands. For a moment, she forgot about the world outside the forest. It was just her and this strange, beautiful creature breathing quietly in the golden light. She had come to the forest expecting a peaceful walk, maybe a few new leaves to press in her notebook. She had never expected to find a wounded alien dragon, and she definitely didn't expect that this moment would change her life in ways she couldn't even imagine yet. But for now, she simply stayed with it because something told her this was only the beginning. She knew she couldn't just leave the creature there. Even though the nail was gone, the wound was still fresh, and the forest wasn't the safest place for a young dragon, especially one so clearly hurt and confused. She felt the weight of responsibility pressing on her chest. Her hands were still slightly trembling from the effort it took to remove the nail, but she tried to calm herself. She had to think clearly. Panicking wouldn't help either of them. She looked around the small clearing. The shadows were getting longer, and the sun was slowly disappearing behind the trees. Soon it would be dark. She didn't even know what kind of predators or dangers might appear in the forest at night, and the dragon couldn't defend itself in its current state. She had to do something fast. "Okay," she whispered to herself. "I need to get you somewhere safe." The dragon's eyes flicked toward her. She could see the pain mixed with caution there. It wasn't angry or aggressive, but it wasn't ready to trust her completely either. She knew from past experience with animals and her few encounters with injured birds or squirrels that patience was going to be the key. She slowly inched closer, holding out her hand. The creature flinched, but stayed in place. Slowly, she extended her palm toward its head, letting it sniff and examine her without forcing contact. After a tense moment, it leaned its snout gently against her hand. She smiled softly. That was a good sign. It meant it was willing to accept help. She looked back at her backpack, realizing she needed more than just her toolkit. She dug through her supplies and pulled out some bandages, antiseptic wipes, and a small water bottle. Even though she didn't know if a human antiseptic would affect an alien dragon, she decided it was better than doing nothing. The dragon's wound was still open, and she couldn't risk an infection. She approached slowly, speaking in her soft, soothing voice. "I'm going to clean your paw. It might feel strange, but I promise it won't hurt." The dragon flinched as she gently touched its injured paw, but it didn't pull away. She started by wiping away the dirt and dried blood. The blue glow around the wound was fading slightly, but it was still visible. She had never seen anything like it. It was as if the dragon's body had some natural healing energy, something she could barely understand. She marveled at the science behind it, but there was no time to be distracted. The creature's comfort and safety came first. Once the paw was clean, she carefully wrapped it in a bandage. The dragon hissed softly when she touched the wound, and she froze for a moment, unsure if it was going to lash out. But then it lowered its head again, letting her continue. She realized that while it was still scared, it trusted her enough not to attack. That thought warmed her heart. With the paw taken care of, she wanted to make sure the dragon was hydrated. She unscrewed her water bottle and gently offered some to it. At first, it hesitated, but then, seeing her hand steady and calm, it lapped at the water. She couldn't help but feel amazed. She was watching a creature from another world, injured and scared, drink water from a human hand. It was surreal. As the dragon drank, she looked around the forest again. She needed a plan. She couldn't carry it. It was too heavy, and even a young dragon had strength far beyond what it looked like. But leaving it here alone wasn't an option. She needed to find some sort of shelter. Her eyes scanned the area and landed on a small cave further up the hill. It wasn't very deep, but it was covered by rocks and trees, hidden from plain sight. It could provide protection from the wind and small animals. She decided it would be the best temporary spot. "Can you walk a little?" She asked the dragon softly. It gave a low growl and tried to stand. Its legs trembled, and it stumbled slightly. She reached out to support it, careful not to touch the injured paw. It was awkward, but together they moved slowly toward the cave. Every few steps it would stop, panting and lowering itself to rest. She talked to it the whole way, keeping her voice calm and gentle, telling it it was safe and that she was there. Once they reached the cave, she helped it settle down. It lay on its side, still breathing heavily, but at least it was out of immediate danger. She sat down nearby, watching it, feeling a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. Her hands and arms were sore from the effort of helping it walk and tending to its wound. But seeing the creature safe made her feel like every ache was worth it. She realized that she needed to think about what would happen next. How would she feed it? Could she even feed a creature from another world? She had no idea what dragons ate, especially one that was clearly alien. She only had a few granola bars and some nuts in her backpack. It probably wouldn't be enough, or even the right type of food, but it was all she had. She placed a small piece near the dragon, just in case it wanted to try it. The creature sniffed it once, then ignored it. That was fine. She wasn't going to force it. As the sun disappeared completely and darkness began to settle over the forest, she felt a shiver run through her. The forest looked completely different at night. Shadows seemed taller, the air felt colder, and every sound was sharper. She could hear rustling leaves, the distant call of birds, and the occasional snap of twigs underfoot. Her heart raced. She didn't know if any animals might come looking for an easy meal, and she didn't know if other dangers lurked in the dark. She glanced at the dragon. It was lying down now, its head resting lightly on the cave floor, but its eyes remained open, watching her. There was a calmness in those eyes, now that hadn't been there before. She felt a strange connection forming. She didn't know how or why, but she felt like this creature, and she understood each other in a way that words couldn't describe. She decided to stay with it through the night. She took out a small flashlight and kept it low, just enough to see without disturbing the dragon. She pulled out a notebook and started jotting down her observations, its scales, the way it breathed, the glow from its wound, even the color of its eyes. She was fascinated, but she reminded herself that this was no experiment. This was a life she had to protect. Hours passed slowly. Every small sound made her heart jump. Every movement of the dragon made her check if it was okay. She barely noticed her own hunger or tiredness. She was completely focused on keeping it safe, making sure it was comfortable, and observing it. At one point, the dragon let out a small, low rumble. She froze. For a moment, she thought it might be in pain again, but then she realized it was a sound of comfort, almost like a sigh. She smiled softly. She reached out and gently stroked its back, feeling the soft scales under her fingers. It didn't flinch this time. It seemed to accept her touch, almost like it was thanking her. The night went on. The temperature dropped, and she wrapped herself in a small jacket, keeping close to the dragon for warmth. She talked to it quietly, telling stories about the forest, about her day, about the books she loved. She didn't know if it understood, but the dragon shifted slightly closer to her, resting part of its head on her knee. That small gesture made her heart swell. She realized that this creature, so alien and different, had trusted her enough to let her help. It was a bond that didn't need words. She had only met it a few hours ago, but already she felt a sense of responsibility she had never felt for anyone or anything before. She knew that leaving it alone now would be cruel. She had to find a way to keep it safe until it could recover, and maybe longer if needed. The night passed slowly, with small bursts of movement from the dragon, small noises from the forest, and the constant glow of the wound fading into a soft, steady light. She watched over it, feeling exhausted but unable to sleep fully. She felt a strange mixture of fear, wonder, and joy. Fear for the dangers that might come, wonder at the creature itself, and joy at the connection forming between them. By the time the first light of morning filtered through the trees, she realized something important. She hadn't just helped a creature. She had entered a world she had never known existed. A world of unknown possibilities, of strange creatures, of new responsibilities. And somehow she felt ready for it. She smiled softly at the dragon, who lifted its head slightly and gave a small, quiet rumble. It was a sound of trust, and it filled her with warmth. She didn't know what the next day would bring, But she knew one thing for certain. She would do everything she could to protect this creature, no matter what. For the first time in a long time, the quiet, nerdy girl who liked to hide behind books felt like she had found her purpose, right there in the forest, beside a wounded alien dragon, and she didn't even know what surprises the day ahead would bring. The morning sunlight streamed gently through the trees, painting the forest in warm shades of gold and green. She stirred awake, careful not to move too quickly. The dragon was still there, lying on its side in the small clearing she had chosen the night before. Its wings were folded neatly, but they twitched occasionally as it stirred in its sleep. For a moment, she just watched it, marveling at how peaceful it looked now. Only a few hours ago, it had been trembling in pain and fear, and now it seemed almost serene. She smiled softly. It was strange how quickly trust could form, even between beings from completely different worlds. She reached out her hand cautiously and brushed it along the dragon's head. The creature opened its eyes slowly, letting out a soft rumble that sounded like a contented sigh. That small sound made her heart swell. Somehow, she felt connected to it, like they understood each other without words. Her thoughts went back to the night before. She had stayed awake almost all night, keeping watch over the dragon. She had been terrified of what could happen: wolves or other forest predators, sudden weather changes, or even the dragon hurting itself in its weakened state. But none of that had happened. Somehow, the night had passed peacefully. Now, she needed to figure out what to do next. The dragon was still weak, and she had no idea how to help it regain full strength. She looked around for anything that could help. There were a few plants and herbs she recognized from her science books, but she wasn't sure if they would be safe for a creature from another world. She decided to stick with what she knew best: water, gentle care, and patience. "Good morning," she whispered softly. "How are you feeling today?" The dragon blinked slowly, then lowered its head again. It didn't answer, of course, but the slight movement of its body seemed like a response. She laughed quietly to herself. Talking to it felt natural, as if it understood her more than anyone else in her life ever had. She checked its paw again. The wound that had caused so much pain yesterday now looked much better. The faint blue glow she had noticed the night before had faded, leaving only a soft, healthy color. It was amazing to see the creature's own healing ability in action. She made a small note in her notebook, sketching the paw and the way it had healed. It was incredible, something that no human doctor could fully explain. After a few minutes, she decided the dragon might need to move around a little. It had been lying still for so long that she worried its muscles would stiffen. She carefully helped it to its feet. It wobbled slightly, unsure of its strength, but with her support, it managed to stand. She was impressed by its resilience. Even in pain, it had tried to be strong. "Let's take it slow," she said, guiding it toward a small patch of sunlight. "Just a little walk. Nothing too far." The dragon followed her lead, taking careful steps. Its tail swished slightly, brushing against the forest floor, and its wings twitched nervously. She could see the tension in its body, but also a determination to regain balance and strength. It was a mix of fear, caution, and courage, all in one dot as they walked. She talked to it softly, telling stories about the forest, about the birds, and about the plants they passed. It seemed to respond to her voice, its ears flicking slightly, its eyes watching her closely. Every small reaction made her feel more connected. It was as if she could sense its emotions, and it could sense hers. After a while, they reached a small stream. The water was clear and cool, and she knelt down to scoop some up. She held it out to the dragon, who hesitated at first, then lowered its head and drank cautiously. She watched it carefully, making sure it didn't hurt itself or spill the water. The dragon's tongue lapped up the water slowly, and when it finished, it shook its head and gave a soft, satisfied rumble. "That's better, isn't it?" she whispered. "You needed that." She stayed by the stream for a while, letting the dragon rest and drink as much as it wanted. She took a few sips herself, grateful for the fresh, cool water. The forest was alive with sounds, birds chirping, leaves rustling, and the soft hum of insects. For a moment, it felt almost peaceful, almost normal, even though she knew what they were dealing with was anything but normal. As the sun rose higher, she realized she needed to find some food. She had only a few small snacks in her backpack: granola bars, nuts, and dried fruit, but she didn't know if the dragon could eat any of that. She decided to try small pieces anyway, just in case. She broke a small piece of granola and held it out. The dragon sniffed it cautiously, then, after a long pause, took it gently with its mouth. She felt a wave of relief. At least it wasn't rejecting her entirely. She continued to offer small pieces, watching the dragon carefully. It ate slowly, cautiously, but steadily. She realized that feeding it this way wasn't just about nutrition. It was about trust. Each small act, each gentle movement, helped the dragon understand that she was there to help, not hurt. By late morning, she decided they should move back toward the small cave. The sun was too hot, and the clearing offered little shade. The dragon followed her, still unsteady on its legs, but determined to keep up. She talked to it softly, guiding it step by step, and for the first time, she noticed a subtle change. The dragon's wings twitched less nervously, its tail didn't sway as much, and its body seemed more relaxed. Once they reached the cave, she helped it settle down again. It lay on its side, breathing evenly, and gave her a soft, almost grateful rumble. She smiled. Every small step counted. Every tiny improvement was a victory. She sat beside it, thinking about the night and the morning so far. She had faced her fears, helped a creature in pain, and learned more in a few hours than she ever had from books. And yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that something unexpected was about to happen. The forest was quiet now, almost too quiet. It made her uneasy. Her instincts were right. Suddenly, a strange hum filled the air, low at first, then growing louder. She froze, her heart pounding. The dragon lifted its head, ears twitching, eyes wide. She could feel its tension. Something was coming, something big. She looked up and gasped. A massive, shimmering object descended from the sky, moving slowly but steadily toward them. It wasn't a bird, or a plane, or anything she had ever seen. Its surface glowed faintly, reflecting the sunlight, and its shape was unlike anything from Earth. The dragon hissed softly, curling slightly around her as if to protect her. She instinctively put a hand on its head, trying to calm it and herself. She had no idea what this was, but it felt important, dangerous, and awe-inspiring all at once. The object landed gently on the forest floor, not far from the cave. Small lights blinked along its edges, and doors, or openings, began to slide open. She took a careful step back, shielding herself behind the dragon. She had no idea what would come out, or if they would be friendly. Then figures began to emerge. Tall, graceful beings, moving with a precision and elegance that was almost unnatural. Their skin glimmered faintly in the sunlight, and their eyes were large and intelligent. She realized with a jolt that these beings were connected to the dragon. They were its kind, or at least its species. The dragon trembled slightly, but didn't run. It stayed close to her, as if saying silently, "I trust you." She felt a surge of pride and responsibility. Somehow, she had earned the trust of a creature from another world. One of the beings stepped forward, studying her carefully. Its eyes lingered on the dragon's paw, and then on the small bandage she had applied. She realized they were observing her actions, assessing whether she had caused harm or helped. She swallowed hard, feeling nervous. She didn't know what they would do. Would they be angry? Would they take the dragon and leave her behind? Or worse, would they see her as a threat? But instead of anger, the being tilted its head slightly, almost like a nod of approval. She couldn't read its expression fully, but something in that gesture told her she had done the right thing. The dragon, sensing the approval, relaxed slightly. It nuzzled her hand gently, a small, trusting gesture that made her heart swell. She realized, in that moment, that her quiet life, her love of books and science, and even her small acts of courage had led her to this extraordinary encounter. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew one thing for sure. Her life and the life of this alien dragon had just become intertwined in a way she could never have imagined. And somehow, she had a feeling that the most incredible part of this story was only just beginning. The morning air was still calm, but there was now a tension in it that she couldn't ignore. The massive object hovering above the trees shimmered faintly, almost like it was breathing with a life of its own. Her heart pounded in her chest as she stayed close to the dragon, feeling its body tense beneath her hand. It wasn't just frightened. It seemed wary, almost as if it recognized something about the approaching beings that she didn't yet understand. The shimmering doors opened slowly, revealing figures stepping out. At first, she thought they might be creatures like the dragon, but then she saw them clearly. They were tall and elegant, with slim, elongated limbs and skin that reflected the sunlight with a faint metallic sheen. Their eyes were large, intelligent, and curious, scanning everything around them with precision. Each movement was deliberate, controlled, almost unlike any life she had ever seen. She instinctively crouched slightly behind the dragon, holding her hand over its glowing back. She didn't know whether these beings were dangerous or friendly. Her mind raced with questions. Were they here to punish her? Were they here to take the dragon away? Or worse, were they going to harm it for being injured? The dragon let out a soft, low growl, pressing its body closer to her. She felt its fear, but also a quiet trust. It wasn't hiding from them. It was standing its ground beside her. That gave her a surge of courage. Somehow, she had become part of this strange, otherworldly world, and she wasn't going to step back now. One of the beings moved closer, its movements almost gliding across the forest floor. Its gaze was fixed on the dragon's paw, then on her hands. She realized they were studying her carefully, not with aggression, but with interest. It was assessing her. Were her intentions good? Were her actions kind? She held her breath, waiting for the next move. Then, to her surprise, the being extended a hand, not toward her aggressively, but in a gesture that seemed almost like communication. The dragon tilted its head, watching closely. She hesitated, unsure whether she should respond. Slowly, she raised her own hand, mirroring the gesture. It paused, then lowered its hand slightly, a subtle nod acknowledging her cooperation. She realized, almost in disbelief, that this wasn't a threat. They weren't here to harm her. They were evaluating her because of the dragon. Somehow, her actions the gentle care she had given. The removal of the painful nail had caught their attention about another being approached, and she noticed a faint glow surrounding it, almost like a halo of energy. Its eyes seemed to flicker between curiosity and caution. She could feel the energy in the air, something powerful but not dangerous, as if it were measuring the bond she had formed with the dragon. The dragon shifted slightly, nudging her hand with its head. It was a small, reassuring gesture, as if it were saying, "It's okay. I trust you." That simple movement gave her the courage to speak softly. "I didn't mean to hurt it," she said quietly, almost to herself. "I just wanted to help." The being tilted its head again, and though she couldn't understand any words, she felt the meaning. They were acknowledging her sincerity. It wasn't human language, but it wasn't hostile either. Somehow, She could feel that they understood her intentions. She glanced at the dragon. Its eyes were wide, watching the figures closely, but its body was relaxed compared to before. It seemed reassured by their presence now, knowing she was beside it. That trust made her heart swell. She had never felt such a strong bond with any living being before. Suddenly, the leading being reached toward the dragon's paw. She froze, expecting the worst, but it didn't touch it aggressively. Instead, a faint, glowing energy seemed to pass between the being and the paw. The dragon flinched slightly, then relaxed again. She realized that the alien beings were capable of advanced healing, or perhaps assessment, something far beyond human understanding. Her mind raced with questions. Were these dragons native to another world? Were these beings their caretakers, their family, or their scientists? She didn't know, but she could sense the connection between them and the dragon. It was familial, protective, and intelligent. The leading being then looked directly at her. She felt an almost electric awareness, like it could see her thoughts and intentions. For a moment, she felt small and insignificant, standing in front of creatures so advanced. But she held her ground, reminding herself of everything she had done to help the dragon. She had acted out of kindness, courage, and compassion, and she had nothing to hide. After a long, tense moment, the being stepped back and gestured toward the dragon again. It moved closer, scanning the wound she had treated. She held her breath. Would it be upset? Would it question her actions? But the dragon didn't resist. In fact, it nudged her gently again, resting its head near her lap. That simple gesture said it all. The dragon trusted her. And somehow, that trust spoke louder than any words. One of the beings reached down carefully and touched the wound with a glowing finger. The blue light flared faintly, mingling with the healing glow that was already there. She realized the dragon's body and the alien technology or energy worked in harmony. The wound that had caused so much pain was now closing faster than she could have. She watched in awe as the process completed. What had been a raw, bleeding injury was now smooth, glowing softly with a healthy light. The dragon flexed its paw experimentally and gave a low, satisfied rumble. She could see it relaxing completely, its wings spreading slightly to stretch. Then the beings turned toward her. Their gestures were deliberate, almost formal. She didn't understand the language, but the tone was unmistakable. They were acknowledging her role in helping the dragon. She felt a warm sense of pride mixed with relief. Her actions, small as they had seemed, had mattered. They had recognized her courage, her patience, and her kindness. The dragon nuzzled her hand again, and she smiled softly. This was more than a bond, it was a partnership. She had saved the dragon's life, and now they were both part of something larger, something she had never imagined. The beings stepped back and gestured toward the sky. The dragon looked at them, then back at her. It was as if they were inviting her to join them, to see more, to understand more. Fear flickered in her chest, but curiosity and wonder were stronger. She knew she had a choice to step forward into the unknown, or to stay behind in the familiar world she had always known. The dragon shifted its weight slightly, its eyes meeting hers. She could feel its encouragement, its trust, its silent message that she was ready. She took a deep breath, feeling both nervous and excited, and slowly stood up. One of the beings extended a hand toward her again. This time, she didn't hesitate. She reached out, and as their hands met, a warm sensation spread through her. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional, intuitive. She could feel their thoughts, their intentions, and most importantly, their respect. The dragon let out a soft, happy rumble and stepped closer, brushing against her legs. It was a gentle reminder that she wasn't alone, that they were in this together. She took another deep breath, letting the weight of the moment settle in. She had never imagined that a quiet walk in the forest, a simple act of kindness, could lead to this. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and the unknown, and she had come out stronger, braver, and more connected than ever before. The beings slowly began to move back toward their ship, the doors closing gently behind them. She and the dragon stayed for a moment, watching as the light faded and the structure disappeared into the sky. The forest seemed quieter now, almost as if it had exhaled. The dragon nudged her hand one last time, giving a soft rumble that sounded like a thank you. She smiled, realizing that this day, this moment was only the beginning. She didn't know what would come next, but she was ready to face it. For the first time in her life, she understood what it meant to be truly connected to another being, to another world, and to a purpose far greater than herself. She had helped save a life, and in doing so, had discovered a courage and compassion within herself she hadn't known existed. As the sun climbed higher, warming the forest and casting long shadows across the ground, she sat beside the dragon and whispered softly, "We did it. We made it through the hardest part." The dragon leaned its head against her shoulder, a small gesture of trust and friendship. She smiled, feeling a sense of peace and excitement for the future. Somehow, she knew that this encounter, this bond, and this incredible adventure were only the beginning of a journey she would never forget, and for the first time, she felt ready for whatever the universe had in store for her, and the dragon next. The forest was quiet now, the only sounds the soft rustling of leaves and the occasional call of distant birds. She sat beside the dragon, her fingers brushing gently over its scales. It was fully healed now, or at least as much as it could be outside its own world, but she knew the bond they had formed was just as important as any treatment or medicine. For the first time, she truly understood what it meant to care for another living being. Her mind kept replaying the events of the morning. The alien beings had arrived, and the moment had been almost overwhelming. She had never imagined meeting creatures so advanced, so different from anything she had ever known. And yet, somehow, she had been accepted. Not fully, of course. There were still so many things she didn't understand about them, their intentions or their connection to the dragon. But she felt a strange sense of relief, knowing that her actions had been recognized as kind and genuine. The dragon shifted slightly, nudging her hand with its snout. She smiled softly. "I know," she whispered. "I didn't expect all of this either." For a long moment, she simply sat there, feeling the warmth of the morning sun and the soft weight of the dragon leaning against her. It was a moment of calm, a rare pocket of peace before the next chapter of this strange adventure began. Then, without warning, the forest seemed to shift. A subtle hum filled the air, low and resonant. She looked up and froze. The shimmering ship appeared again, descending slowly from the sky. The dragon stiffened beside her, ears twitching, wings folding slightly, as if preparing for movement. She instinctively put a hand on its head, offering comfort. The alien beings emerged once more, their movements calm and deliberate. This time, their attention was focused entirely on her. One of them, taller than the others, and with a faint glow surrounding its form, stepped forward. Its eyes locked onto hers, and though she couldn't understand its language, she felt a wave of emotion, curiosity, respect, and most surprisingly invitation. She swallowed hard, her heart pounding. Could they be inviting her onto the ship? Into their world? It seemed impossible, and yet the feeling was undeniable. She glanced at the dragon. Its eyes met hers, filled with trust and encouragement. It nudged her gently, almost as if it were saying, "You can do this. I trust you." She took a deep breath. Fear was still there, but it was mingled with excitement, curiosity, and a strange sense of destiny. Slowly she stepped forward, keeping one hand near the dragon to reassure it. The being extended its hand again, and this time she didn't hesitate. Their fingers touched, and she felt a warmth unlike anything she had ever known. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional, intuitive. She could sense their respect, their acknowledgement of her courage, and an unspoken trust. The dragon let out a low rumble and stepped closer, brushing against her leg. She smiled. It was as if they were forming a small, unspoken team, her, the dragon, and these beings from another world. Together, they were stepping into something entirely new. The alien beings began moving toward the ship, gesturing for her to follow. She looked down at the dragon, who seemed to understand the invitation. It shifted slightly, then walked forward beside her, still cautious but willing to trust her guidance. Together, they approached the ship. The doors opened smoothly, welcoming them inside. Once inside, she was struck by the sheer beauty and complexity of the environment. Light shimmered across walls that seemed to flow like liquid, and strange devices hummed softly, their functions she could only imagine. The air was warm and comforting, carrying a faint scent that reminded her of flowers and rain. She could hardly believe she was standing here, in a place so unlike anything she had ever seen. The dragon moved cautiously, sniffing and observing its surroundings. She followed closely, keeping her hand near its side. Though it was fully healed, it still looked to her for guidance. That thought made her heart swell. She had become its protector, and now, unexpectedly, she was about to enter a world that belonged to it. The beings led her to a room filled with soft, glowing crystals. Each crystal seemed to pulse gently, almost like it was alive. One of the beings gestured toward a central crystal, which floated slightly above a pedestal. Its light brightened as she approached. She felt a strange warmth radiating from it, and a sudden clarity of thought. Images, feelings, and knowledge seemed to flow through her mind, not words. But understanding she realized that this crystal was a gift. It wasn't just an object. It was a bridge between their world and hers. Through it, she could learn, understand, and even communicate more fully with these beings and their species. She reached out and touched it, feeling a surge of energy pass through her. It was overwhelming at first, but then she felt calm. The knowledge wasn't forced. It was offered gently, as if it were an invitation to grow, to explore, and to learn. The dragon watched her closely, its eyes reflecting the soft glow of the crystal. It moved slightly closer, resting its head near her feet. She reached down and patted its head, feeling the familiar warmth and trust. She realized that in helping it, she had also helped herself grow in ways she had never imagined. Courage, patience, empathy, these were no longer just abstract words. They were qualities she had lived, experienced, and demonstrated. One of the beings stepped forward again, extending a hand toward her. This time, there was no hesitation, no uncertainty. She understood the gesture. They were offering her acceptance, inclusion, and a chance to belong in a way she had never known. She took their hand and felt a connection unlike anything she had ever felt. It was more than trust. It was understanding, recognition, and respect. The dragon let out a soft, happy rumble, nudging her hand again. She smiled. Somehow, this small, wounded creature had brought her into a world she never could have dreamed existed. She had saved its life, and in doing so, had earned the respect of an entire species. Time seemed to blur inside the ship. She explored slowly, guided by the beings and the dragon. Each room revealed new wonders, floating displays of glowing plants, devices that seemed to record and share memories, and gentle lights that shifted color with every movement. She realized that this world was not just advanced, it was alive, responsive, and deeply intelligent. As they moved through the ship, she felt a sense of peace she had never known. Here, there was no judgment, no fear, no loneliness. Here, she was valued for who she was: curious, compassionate, brave, and willing to care for another life, no matter how different. The realization made her chest swell with pride and gratitude. Finally, they reached a chamber that seemed to serve as a resting area. Soft mats and cushions lined the floor, and gentle light bathed the space. The dragon settled comfortably, curling up beside her. She sat down as well, feeling the weight of everything that had happened: the danger, the fear, the joy, and the awe. She had faced something extraordinary, and she had come through it stronger, wiser, and braver. The leading being approached once more and gestured toward the dragon, then toward her. She understood the meaning immediately. The dragon was theirs, and yet they were acknowledging her role in its recovery and trust. She felt a warm surge of pride. She had earned this recognition not through strength or power, but through kindness, patience, and courage. She looked down at the dragon, who met her gaze with understanding eyes. Its small, comforting movements reminded her that their bond was unbreakable. She had helped it when it was weak, and now it was safe and strong because of her. A soft hum filled the chamber, gentle and welcoming. She felt a strange sense of anticipation, as if this moment marked the beginning of something far greater than she could yet understand. The beings around her were not just acknowledging her, they were offering her a place in a world she had never imagined. A world that belonged to the dragon, but now also included her. She smiled softly, feeling a wave of gratitude, excitement, and awe. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew one thing for certain: her life had changed forever. She had entered a world of wonder, trust, and connection, and she had done it not through force, but through compassion. The dragon let out a soft rumble, resting its head against her lap. She stroked its scales gently, feeling a warmth that went beyond the physical. She had saved its life, gained its trust, and now, unexpectedly, had become part of something larger: a bond, a journey, and a story she would carry with her forever. And though she didn't know what adventures awaited, she felt ready. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and the unknown, and she had emerged stronger, braver, and more connected than ever before. For the first time in her life, she understood what it truly meant to care, to trust, and to belong. And in that moment, she knew that the greatest journey was only just beginning. The warmth of the ship's chamber wrapped around her, a gentle contrast to the cool forest she had left behind. The dragon rested comfortably beside her, its breathing slow and steady, its eyes half closed in contentment. She stroked its scales lightly, marveling at how far they had come together. From a frightened, wounded creature to this strong, calm, and almost regal in its presence. And through it all, she had been there, helping, guiding, and quietly learning from it that the alien beings hovered nearby, observing quietly. She could sense their interest, their respect, and their curiosity about her. They weren't just acknowledging her actions. They were studying her, trying to understand the choices and instincts that had led her to care for the dragon. She had always thought of herself as ordinary, quiet, and somewhat nerdy. She had spent more time reading books and tinkering with gadgets than facing real danger. Yet here she was, recognized by beings far more advanced than humans, simply because she had acted with kindness and courage. Her mind wandered back to the very beginning, to the moment she had found the dragon trapped and in pain. How small and fragile it had seemed, and how uncertain she had felt. She had doubted herself countless times, questioning whether she could help it or if she might accidentally make things worse. But she had acted anyway, trusting her instincts and her empathy. And that choice had brought her here, to this moment, in a place she never could have imagined existed. Suddenly, the soft hum of the chamber changed. The light from the crystals around them pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. She looked at the dragon, who perked up slightly, ears twitching. The beings began moving with a quiet urgency, though not in alarm. It was as if they were guiding them, preparing for the next step of a journey she hadn't yet anticipated. One of the beings gestured toward a large, circular platform at the center of the room. It floated slightly above the floor, surrounded by soft, glowing lights. She realized that this platform was some kind of transport or interface, something that would allow them to travel, perhaps even beyond their current location. Her curiosity surged. She had always loved science and exploration in theory, but now she was faced with the real possibility of stepping into something extraordinary. The dragon nudged her hand gently, sensing her hesitation. She smiled softly, realizing that the creature had become her anchor, her guide, and her friend. It had trusted her, and now she would trust it in return. Carefully, she helped the dragon step onto the platform. Its wings fluttered slightly as it adjusted its balance, but it stood firm, looking back at her as if saying, "We're ready together." Taking a deep breath, she stepped onto the platform herself. The moment her feet touched the surface, a gentle warmth spread through her body. The lights around the platform intensified, and for a brief moment, she felt a connection to everything: the ship, the beings, the dragon, and even the vast universe outside. It was a strange, overwhelming sensation, but it was comforting too. She wasn't alone. She was part of something larger, something profound. The platform began to rise slowly, lifting them above the floor. She clutched the dragon's side gently, feeling the strength of its scales under her hand. Though it was calm, she could feel its awareness, its readiness to face whatever was coming. Together, they moved upward, leaving the familiar forest and ship behind them, entering a world that was entirely new and unknown. Outside the chamber, the ship's viewports revealed a breathtaking sight. The stars stretched infinitely in every direction, and distant planets shimmered like jewels in the darkness. She gasped quietly, feeling a mix of awe and disbelief. She had read about space, seen pictures in books and documentaries, but nothing compared to experiencing it firsthand. The alien beings hovered nearby, their presence steady and reassuring, guiding them through the vast expanse. The dragon let out a soft, contented rumble. She patted its side, feeling the bond between them deepen with each passing moment. She realized that this journey wasn't just about exploration. It was about trust, understanding, and the connection between different beings. She had always loved learning, but now she was learning in ways she could never have imagined. After what felt like both an instant and an eternity, the platform began to descend toward a glowing, distant planet. Its surface shimmered with soft, iridescent colors, unlike anything she had seen on Earth. The alien beings guided them to a landing site, and the platform settled gently on the ground. The dragon stepped off first, its claws making faint impressions in the glowing surface. She followed, careful to stay close, feeling a mixture of nervousness and excitement. The planet was alive with color and light. Strange plants glowed faintly, and soft, melodic sounds echoed through the air. She felt as though she had stepped into a living painting, one that was constantly shifting and breathing. The alien beings moved with grace, guiding her and the dragon along a path lined with luminescent flora. She marveled at everything: the beauty, the energy, and the undeniable sense that this world had its own intelligence, its own life force. As they walked, one of the beings approached her and extended a small, glowing object. She took it cautiously, feeling its warmth in her hand. Suddenly, she understood its purpose, not through words, but through intuition. It was a communicator, a device that would allow her to understand and connect with the beings, and perhaps even with other creatures she had yet to meet. She realized that this gift was not just practical. It was a symbol of acceptance, a bridge between her world and theirs. The dragon nudged her hand gently, sensing her thoughts. She smiled softly. "We're in this together," she thought, feeling a deep sense of companionship. The journey ahead was unknown, but she no longer felt fear. She had the dragon by her side, and she had proven that kindness and courage could open doors to worlds she had never imagined. They arrived at a large, crystalline structure that seemed to pulse with life. The alien beings gestured for them to enter. Inside, the air shimmered with energy, and the walls glowed softly. She felt a sense of calm and focus, as if the space itself was encouraging her to step forward, to embrace the unknown. The dragon followed closely, its presence reassuring. She realized that every challenge she had faced, removing the nail, tending to its wounds, gaining its trust, had prepared her for this moment. She had learned patience, courage, and empathy. And now those lessons were being rewarded in ways she could never have anticipated. The beings led them to a central chamber, where a soft light bathed everything in a gentle glow. In the middle of the room, an enormous crystal hovered above a pedestal, pulsating rhythmically. She felt drawn to it, as if it were calling her. She approached slowly, the dragon at her side, and reached out to touch it. The moment her fingers brushed the surface, a surge of understanding and connection flooded her mind. Images of the dragon's world, its species, and their history passed through her consciousness. She understood, in an instant, the importance of her actions, the significance of trust, and the power of compassion. She realized that her decision to help the dragon, even when it was small and seemingly insignificant, had set in motion a chain of events that had changed her life and the dragon's life forever. The alien beings watched silently, their presence steady and supportive. She felt their approval, their respect, and their acknowledgement of her role. She had not just saved a life, she had demonstrated the values that mattered most: courage, empathy, and integrity. The dragon nuzzled her hand, its rumble soft and content. She smiled, feeling a profound sense of connection. This journey had been unexpected, overwhelming, and sometimes frightening, but it had also been filled with wonder, discovery, and the kind of trust that transcended worlds. As she stood there, holding the dragon close, she realized something incredible. This was not the end of her adventure. It was only the beginning. The universe was vast, full of mysteries, challenges, and friendships yet to be discovered. And now she had a place in it, alongside a creature she had saved, a bond she had earned, and beings who recognized the value of kindness and courage. The alien beings gestured toward the exit, signaling that it was time to move forward. She took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of excitement and calm. The dragon pressed closer, and she wrapped her arm around it gently. Together, they stepped forward, ready to explore, learn, and face whatever the universe had in store. As they left the chamber, the glowing crystals pulsing softly behind them, she felt a sense of peace and purpose she had never known. She had started this journey as an ordinary, nerdy girl, unsure of her place in the world. Now, she was part of something extraordinary, an adventure beyond imagination, a bond that transcended species, and a future filled with endless possibilities. And for the first time, she knew with certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be, beside the dragon, walking into the unknown, ready to embrace the wonders and challenges ahead. The universe stretched out before her, infinite and full of promise, and she felt ready. Ready to learn, ready to grow, and ready to protect the ones she cared about. Together with the dragon, she would face the unknown not with fear, but with courage, curiosity, and a heart full of compassion. And as they stepped into the shimmering light of the ship once more, she knew that nothing would ever be the same again.